copy of this. So welcome to why we are not headed to a housing bubble. So this webinar is going to have a mixture of some data that just from national statistics, historical data. You'll get to share it with whoever you want. And then just also some personal experience of things that we're seeing here in the local market as well. Definitely, I'll be watching the chat for questions. So please feel free to ask questions, make comments, and we'll share those with the group for sure. So I am Jennifer Hernandez, and I've been lending as a loan officer for almost 27 years. In September, it'll be 27. I've closed over 4,300 loans. I'm almost to 4,400. So I'll reach that in the next couple of months. So lots of great experience, and I do learn something new every day. So I can tell you from experience that this market is different than anything I've ever seen. But there are some similar trends to what I have seen. So I'm going to be mixing that into my talk. We haven't ever been to this kind of appreciation before, that's for sure, but the data will be interesting and we'll start to point towards what we can expect in the future. So you can always reach me at loanwithjen.com. All my social media handles, Loan with Jen. And also I want to point out my YouTube channel. So if you don't subscribe yet, whether you're a realtor or a homeowner, I have over 320 videos. Just think it as your own search engine for everything mortgage. So my channel is Loan with Jen on YouTube, and it's just a labor of love. I wanted to get all the ideas in my head somewhere. And that seemed like the natural progression of things. So now we point all of our homeowners and buyers that are referred there to just ask question, type in a keyword, FHA or condo, and I'm sure that I have a video about it. And I'm always looking for new topics. So text me, email me anytime like, hey, Jen, you need to make a video about this. So anyway, go there, have fun, get informed. So today, the big questions that everybody wants to know: will home prices go backward? So will they fall, in essence, a housing bubble? And people also say, won't foreclosures flood the market? Like, aren't we headed for all these foreclosures after forbearance? I don't know. Are we? Just wanted to point that out. Okay. The biggest one here, I want you guys to point out, since 1945, World War II, the values have gone backwards one time, and that was in 2008. I was a loan officer at that time, and these are a lot of these graphs I'm showing you are national, and they also did happen here, of course, locally. Not as bad in Texas because of our homestead laws, and we don't allow 100% cash out in Texas. But in 2008, the mortgage debacle, yes, that did happen. There were also some other things going on at the time that helped lead to that, but we did recover. I mean, you'll see that 2008, and then things did start to climb, back up, and things started to get back to normal. It took probably 2 to 3 years, just nationally, and some markets it took a little bit longer, like Florida. So foreclosure activity at an all-time low. Okay, so we're going to talk now like about foreclosures and different things that sometimes lead to this bubble, right? Where there's a flood of inventory. That's what causes values to go down. Is the sellers have to start lowering their prices in order to get things sold. Okay, so we right now are at the lowest level, if you can see on the graph, back to 2005. Okay, it just went back to 2005, but we are down in the first quarter of 2022, 78,000 foreclosures nationwide. It is absolutely the lowest in the last 17 years. So that's pretty eye-opening. The other thing that I want y'all to see is the percentage of distressed property sales, meaning foreclosures and short sales. So just in conjunction with the graph that I just showed, you can see down here that really after the end of 2020, the line is almost flat, like below 4%. I mean, it's less than 1%. As of this, a lot of this data is as of March 31st. Okay. So 2 months ago, it's almost a really flat number. Of course, during that part of COVID, which still, some of the moratoriums still exceeded into 2021, where lenders were forbidden to foreclose. So that's part of what that flat yellow line on the right of the graph is that lenders couldn't foreclose even if they wanted to, because they were forbidden by government regulation to just allow people to get back on their feet. But now what you're going to find interesting is even now as recent as April, so forbearance, that's what could cause a flood of foreclosures. Okay. But we're not seeing it partly due because 92% of people that were in forbearance are now out of it and back paying. So it was a short-term hiccup or short-term allotment, a pause of time that allowed people to get back on their feet. Well, now people are back paying. They're like, okay, we got the forbearance, we're back in our loan. So you can see these numbers, forbearance has just edged downward as people are getting back into their regular loans. Okay. So again, 92% of owners have exited forbearance. So if you look in the orange, the 18.9, all those numbers in the orange are added together to 37% of the forbearances were paid in full, meaning let's say that your forbearance period, you got to eliminate, let's say it was 7 or 8 months and that total was $15,000. Well, people caught up, and 37% of the people paid and caught up their forbearance with paying it back. 44.6% reworked their payment plans. Maybe they put it on the end of the loan. Maybe they did a modification, something to get back settled. And then 18.4%, the blue, were still in trouble. So yes, there are still some people that were in forbearance that were in trouble, but as you can see, less than 20%. But they're probably still trying to work things out with their current lenders. Okay. So the other thing that I'll point out that's different, and I'm going to go back to 2008, because that's when we saw things go actually backwards, like big time backwards. So back then, and I definitely remember the day of the fast and easy loan. And literally, I would joke about this, but I was like, hey, you just have to be breathing and be able to get a Texaco credit card. Those of you that remember back to the to the 90s, everybody could get a Texaco credit card. So that's kind of a joke, but it was just really easy. So I'm like, yeah, if you were breathing, you had a social and you could get a Texaco credit card, you were able to get a loan. Like it was so easy. Well, that obviously went away and imploded. The lending standards since 2008, and with the induction of some new laws and regulations for lenders, the credit risk of the loans now is at a very high. There's a lot of oversight. There are some lenders right now, yes, that do bank statement loans and TIN number and tax identification number and some squirrely things. Okay. But it's a very small percentage of the product risk as a whole. And those are usually sold to hedge funds. Like there's some private investors that do that kind of stuff. Those kind of loans are not mixed in with the large pools of loans that are under, FHA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac. So again, the mix of lending and the AAA credit or the credit rating of these mortgage bonds is at a very, very high quality. It doesn't mean that there's not default. I mean, yes, there is. Okay. But for the most part, compared to 2008, and you had all those, 100% or 103%, I remember, loan where you could roll in your closing costs and do 0% down. Like, I mean, it was nuts. That doesn't exist anymore. So things are very different than they were. Even if the market was to cool off a little bit, and you'll see in some slides in that are coming, I mean, it'll eventually slow down, but go backwards, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen is my education on that fact. So, so again, and also I'll let you know on this slide, what this says is this is talking about mortgage payments as a percentage of people's disposable income. So people are making more. I know that there is some inflation, and I know, but wages over time have increased, and a percent because of the lending guidelines as well, and because lenders are doing such a good job of making sure that homeowners stay within certain debt to income ratios. Okay. That is helping to make sure that people don't get into a situation where their mortgage payment is too high of a percentage of their total percent of their income. Okay. So as you can see now, down people's mortgage payment as a percentage of their disposable personal income is down at 3.8%. Okay. Or the debt service ratio is down. What is ahead? That's what everybody wants to know. Like, okay, this is where we've been. This is kind of the past. These are what the trends say. So the best way that we can predict the future is to look at the data and the historical data, right? So that's what we've just done. We've looked at some of the historical data and what is ahead. So home price forecast for you here. This is a nice bar graph here. So the orange represents the average of everything to the right. So all these different people have their opinion, all these economists, right? So we've got, starting with the 10.8%, we've got Fannie Mae has one idea, Freddie Mac, CoreLogic, all the way Mortgage Bankers Association on the far right. So everyone has their economist and has their take. Well, if you take a mesh and an average of what they all kind of agree on, you land at 9%. Now, this is national. So it doesn't represent our local market, which what I see every day is even higher than 9%. But again, remember, this is national. But I will remind you that, and I'll just insert my comment here of other things that I have read. And let's talk for a minute just about the local market. It is all over the news and media and everywhere else. Texas is the number 2, not far behind Florida, the number 2 state for relocation. And you'll see on a graph that I've got here in a minute that the South, which Texas is in the South, that's where people are going. So our market is even a little bit more different than this national average because of our compared to the rest of the country, affordability. House prices are still relatively, compared to other parts of the East and the West Coast anyway. That's where most of the people are coming from, is East and West Coast, where things are just so high and out of control. Okay, so the forecast of the overall house appreciation for national level is 9%. And you can even bank on more than that for our local market, because again, we're the number 2 most popular area. So in the first quarter, so I want to show you this interesting. So remember that 9% number. So the forecast, again, from all those entities that have kind of, their economists have forecasted. So all the way, I have heard till 26 or 2026, I've heard more often. I have a couple of people or sources that have even forecasted longer than that. But I think for the next 4 to 5 years, homes will be appreciating. And again, this is a national number. Things will continue to appreciate at, abnormal levels than what we're used to until 2026. And then the forecast is that things will start to slow down, but that slowing down does not mean go backwards. There has not been an indication of things going backwards. Now, I know what everyone is thinking. They're like, well, what about, the affordability, and what about the rates? Yes, rates are elevated from where they were. And yes, there are people that are sitting out of the market. Definitely. I would say we have at least, I would say 25% of our, just me personally, buyers that are pre-approved are sitting out because the prices of the houses that they can afford are in excess of what they can afford monthly. It just is. And the only way that those people will buy a house in the future is they'll have to change their budget, or they'll have to make more money, because prices are not going to come down. They will continue to rise, and people will figure it out. They will figure it out. And so, but right now, yes, there is that affordability gap. Definitely. So we will talk about, there's another slide where I'll talk about that as well. But that's not everybody. I can also tell you, okay, so if that's 25%, what about the other 75? Well, of the other 75% of the people that we see, and I, just to kind of put this out there, I average 100 referrals a month of pure referral. I have a very large business. Now, not everyone qualifies. Okay. Of that 100, we do applications on 60. We're about 2/3. Okay. So I do have on a monthly basis a good test pool of people that just represent average people. I mean, my clients are anywhere from, 200,000 up to the millions. I mean, I've got larger end clients too. So I do get a good vision of what's going on in all different price ranges, all different economic statuses. So it does give me a good roundabout perspective. So let's say of those 60 people, let's say that 25% of them are just like, hey, I'm sitting this thing out. Like, I cannot afford, like, you're telling me I can afford 200, but the stuff that I'm seeing is 250. I'm like, well, can you get a cosigner? If you can't get a cosigner, yeah, you're going to have to sit it out. Look for a job that pays more money, and then come back to me. Let's talk again in 6 to 12 months. That's how they're going to be able to buy a house. So the other portion of the people, they don't like it, but they're like, all right, let me see what I can cut. Do I cut my cable? Do I, turn in my car and get, yeah. I mean, y'all, this is a true story. Like a few years ago, well, maybe about 15 years ago now, when Fernando and I, went from our little condo to our 5,000 square foot house, he was like, Sunshine, if you want that house, like, what are you going to cut to get it? Because that's the only way you're going to get that house that we just saw. And I found like $700 of savings in our budget at that time. I traded in my car. I pulled everything out to get that done. I was motivated. And so there are people that are motivated, and they will find the cuts. They might not have it right now, but they will find the cuts. And I know that that's, things are hard. I mean, groceries are going up, all these things are going up. I mean, I super get it, but I also want to face the reality that prices are going up as well. And it is just a new norm. So we've got to relook at our budgets, look at where we spend our money, look at the jobs that we have, educate ourselves to be able to have a new career or whatever. So there's a shift that's happening, and it takes time. Sometimes people, okay, I'm going to sign another year lease, improve my situation. Now I know what I need. I got my homework from Jennifer. We got to go find it. So that's happening as well. So speaking more to the affordability part of it. Okay. So I want to just show you, and again, we're still kind of, I mean, I'm inserting rates in here because it does mix in with the affordability portion. Okay. So I have, in the 27 years I've done this, I have not ever seen. So, I mean, here's my disclaimer. I'm not a professional economist. I've just got the hard knocks of personal experience. These are just my professional takes, of interpreting and looking at the data. But, rates will come down again. They will. I have seen rates come down 4 to 5 times in the last 25 years, 27 years. So it does happen every 3 to 5 years. I believe, from what economists are saying, we are headed towards a recession. It's like, that's all over the news. And when we come out of it, which will probably be 2 to 3 years from now, when we're on the tail end of it, that's how economists cure that type of policy. Recessions are cured by lowering rates. So rates will come down again. There could be something before then that makes them come down. I mean, who knows? But they will come down again. And everybody now that's got, 5.5% to 6% or 5 or whatever they've got, they'll be refinancing. So, but again, this graph and this data, we're in the here and the now. And so what do people do now? I'm telling clients, look, if you can afford the payment, and if the house that you can find with that payment is, good for your family, get in and start the foundation for your appreciation, because that is probably for sure is that prices will begin to rise. And the house that you see today, that's $375, it will be $450 a year from now. Based on the data and where things are headed. You don't just go to a 3-week inventory or 1-month inventory market to a 7-8 months inventory, which when you flip to a buyer's market, it's usually inventory over 6 months. That doesn't happen overnight. If you remember the slides prior about the foreclosure stats, there's not a lot of foreclosures looming. Now, these numbers, I'm going to reanalyze them again in about 6 months, just because, property taxes are going up. There might be some people that can't afford payments. But what we're seeing is they can list their house. Another reason, y'all, that I want to mention, people can list their house. Like, if you're in trouble, or if you have a client that calls you, or you have a neighbor and it's like, oh my God, we're having this trouble, y'all, they can list their house right now and sell it in a hot minute before they get behind with the bank. So that is what's happening, is that their inventory is getting gobbled up by the demand. And so that's also a phenomenon that's happening, is that, yes, there's people that are struggling, but they're like, well, I guess we're just going to have to downsize. Let's cash in and get our equity out of our house so that we can move on down the road, pay off this debt, get out from under it, sell. We hate to move, but you know what? We've got to do it so we don't have to, declare bankruptcy and all this other stuff. So what you're looking at here in the change in mortgage payments. Okay. So if you look up at January, at the top left of the graph, at January 2021, you can see here that the payment is at 2.73%. Like, rates were really low. Oh my God. A year and a half ago, at your $300,000 house payment was principal and interest $1,221. So if you go down to the bottom right of the graph to my purple October 2022 estimate, we think that, the current and the October, things are going to be somewhere between 5.25 and 5.5. They're kind of actually right now in that range. So your payment goes to $1,703. That's almost a $500 a month jump. So if you want to know, yes, there's people that we approved at the end of last year in the fourth quarter. So if you look to the bottom left of December 2021, and you see, okay, rates were kind of around 3. people thought their payment was $1,279. And then if you hop over to the far right to 1,703, I mean, that's a, $420 jump, right? So clients, they are shocked. They are like, oh my gosh. So it's a new, like the example that I gave before. I wanted a house. I wanted this house and I found a way to get it. So I am coaching clients. Like, yes, I realize that this is a higher payment, but what I want you to think about is that the house that you're looking at now will be worth 10 to 15% more, depending on the area that you're buying in. It will be worth 10 to 15% more this time next year. So rates are going to go down in a few years. In 2 to 3 years, they'll be down. So think of it as a temporary bump. So that difference in the rate, or that difference in the payment, truly is like you're putting money towards your savings plan. So, if you're a big saver, which I hope everybody is, okay, I'm paying $420 more in a payment, but my house is appreciating. We're not going to enjoy this appreciation forever, y'all. We are not. It's not logical. I mean, average in Houston is 3 to 5%, just historically, for those of you that have, watched the numbers for a while, that's been the average. It'll get back to that at some point, I think. But right now, for the next 4 years, till 2026, so for another 4 years, we're probably going to enjoy appreciation that we probably won't enjoy forever. And so locking that in, getting in and starting that appreciation is an opportunity moment for people. And it's an opportunity cost if they don't do it. So if someone is renting, the interest rate on rent is 100%. There is absolutely no value. So the quicker that someone can get in, again, the challenge right now is, can I afford the 1,703 a month? I thought 5 months ago, I thought I was going to have a payment of $1,279. And now that same price is 1,703. And maybe not even 1,703. It might be higher, because a $300,000 loan 5 months ago, now I've got to pay higher for the house. So it's probably a 330 or 340 loan. So that's even higher. So I get it. And we're working on analyzing with clients right where they are, showing them the pathway, working with them to just say, hey, let's talk to your spouse, analyze your budget. Is there something in excess that you can cut? If you're saving a certain amount per month, now just think of it as if you were saving $2,000 a month, now you're saving $1,500 over here, but $500 extra is going to your mortgage payment. But that's really a savings plan too, because you're going to benefit from that when you sell at some future point, because your value is going to be elevated. That's what appreciation is. And with the data that we saw in some of the graphs before, since 1945, values have only gone backwards, really truly backwards enough to where there's a huge dip in the graph one time. And so the odds are not in that favor that that's going to happen again. So things will go up before they stabilize, and they will stabilize. Things will slow down. But it's expected to be in 4 to 5 years. So again, it's almost like people are just reallocating some of their savings. Okay. That's how I look at it. Okay. So again, those numbers here, yes, going from $1,200 a month to $1,700, it's a shock, but we've just got to recalibrate some things. So more to the affordability, just to give y'all a vision of what is happening, right? With people's, spending. So average consumer is spending $429 a month on items other than shelter. Meanwhile, wages just rose $212. So we do have a gap, in people's, their wages are not rising fast enough to meet what the prices are. So that is happening. That is inflation, which means people are looking, if they want to keep the same payment, they're looking for a house that's about 41 $41,000, $42,000 cheaper if they can find it. So that is the quagmire that we're in, and just goes to adjusting either the salary, finding another job, or we're seeing people that, they're getting second jobs. Some people that are like, hey, I really, really want a house. I'm going to start driving Uber. I'm going to start, delivering DoorDash. Or I'm going to start, saving more so I can put a larger down payment. So everyone's situation is a little bit different. The good thing is there's a lot of jobs out there that people can take that they're not, right? So there are some jobs out there that people are just shifting around, There's a big shift. We did again talk about mortgage rates. This is a graph just to show you that I think for the horizon into at least a year from now, I think it's going to be, rates will be pretty steady, kind of where they are in the fives. Maybe by the end of the year, there might be a slow dip back to the high fours, who knows? That's a big crystal ball. For the last part of the presentation, I do want to go through home sales, just some data around that for you, and then some more graphs to just reiterate that buyer demand is still very strong. Okay, which is you've got still a large demand, even though there's some of those other things happening that we mentioned. But people are shifting. They're just finding different ways to make it work. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to spend more than $2,000 a month. Okay, let me rethink this, Jennifer. To get this house that I'm seeing that fits my needs, I've got to spend $2,400. Okay, let me just have a minute so I can just absorb that and I can think about it and see if I can recalibrate my budget. So average days on the market, this is a nice national graph for you, but the very dark area is really in the totally middle, like North Dakota down to Kansas. They're super hot. Nevada, Utah, the dark colors are less than 15 days average on the market. Who would have thought? It is cold in South Dakota, but I guess that's where people want to go. Plus there's just less homes, right? So we are in the second category, which is the little bit, lesser blue. We're in the 15 to 30 area. And if you can notice, that is the majority of the United States, which is alarming to me. So people are moving around. We are seeing with what happened in COVID, we are seeing more and more people that are remote and they can live anywhere. So they're going to live towards either, Texas, which we're attractive because we have no state tax, and we're, for the most part, more affordable. We've got some big cities where there's lots of job opportunity, and those things are attracting people. National average is 17 days. So again, those kinds of numbers don't change overnight, unfortunately. And just to reiterate this and just give y'all some real data. Again, we take about 60 applications per month on average. And I can probably say more than a third of those, they are moving around. Like right now, a huge application detail is they're moving from somewhere else. Probably at least, 25 to 30% of my applicants are from somewhere else. And we just have the conversation super early, like, hey, your employer will confirm that you remote is okay, right? Like your job is intact. It'll remain the same. They're like, oh yeah, I'm remote, so I can live anywhere. So again, that is a huge trend, huge trend that we are seeing, that is not going to go away because more and more people are able to work from wherever. So that is as a result of COVID and then just some of the policies that people are making. So people are migrating to Texas still. Again, we're the number 2 state. Interesting. New home sales. I threw the new home sales in here because that is, I will mention, New home sales is what in the past has kept our Houston market in check. I mean, if you just drive out west or now northeast or, past Tomball, I mean, if you drive outward, northwest Houston, there's pastures, like there's just land. Houston has been expanding for a long time, the outer city limits. But now with the shortage, and it's been happening for some time, it's been probably the last decade that we've seen less and less, but we haven't really noticed it. But now with what's been happening with COVID, it's become more apparent with the lack of materials, shipping and getting things cross country and lumber and those little chips, the shortage of chips that go in the refrigerators and the washing machines. I mean, you just can't really walk into Best Buy and buy a appliance anymore. It's like those 6-week delivery, like that is still going on. And so builders take longer to get things to market. And if the current buyer doesn't qualify, the only way you're getting inventory on new home sale is if the current buyer that was supposed to buy it doesn't qualify anymore for some reason. And now they get to sell it to somebody else for a higher price. But there's not a lot of inventory with new home sales. They're only building to fill the contracts that they have, right? So if you put one on that hasn't started yet, on a new build, I mean, it's taking double to triple the time that it normally did. Builders aren't pumping out 3 to 4 months anymore. It's, a year. We just closed a guy that's been building his house for 18 months with a builder. 18. And granted, it was more of a custom house and more of a custom community, but that's a long time. So new homes and the lack of speed and the lack of inventory, as you can see, the number on the far right is, lower than it's ever been. The months from completion to sold is quicker than it's been. Things are getting gobbled up. And this is nationwide again. In Texas, it's definitely less than 3 months. So new construction is not there to help keep our balance of our market in check. It's what's kept the balance of the prices in check, because in the past, new homes have kept resale values a little bit lower from going up too fast, because people are like, oh, I'll just go buy a new home. And, the incentives, and they want people to buy in the new homes, right? So they'll make the prices attractive, and that's not happening anymore. So that's why we're also seeing a lot of this inflation of the inflation of prices and the values going up, if that makes sense. So it's just a very, very interesting dynamic. Now, existing homes, you can see here again, this is national, and this is from NAR. NAR put this out. At the bottom right of all these slides, by the way, when you get it, you see very lightly, you'll see the source of where all this information was derived. So US average, if you look of the average of the home, of the prices of the homes, 15%, mostly though, the South. If you can see that the year over year, the sale price of existing homes in the South is higher, and Texas is in the South. That makes up the majority of that number. Okay. So we are considered that South corridor. We're not the Midwest. The Midwest was that graph, that US map before that I showed, that was like South Dakota, North Dakota, and all that. That's considered Midwest. And we're like the South, like Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Oklahoma, that's considered the South. So again, Texas is a huge part of that, just to give you some perspective. And just if you like graphs, if you like to see it a different way, change in home prices since COVID has just super gone up, super gone up. Here's a bar graph change in home prices. Okay. And this goes back year over year. So this goes back 1 year, and from February to February 21 to February of 20. Now this is just a 20 city composite. So these are the largest 20 cities. This is from S&P Case-Shiller. That's one of those groups that put together info. And they took a survey of the main 20 cities in the US. And of course, Houston is definitely on that list. And you can see here, if you just break it down to those 20 cities, even recently, the change in home prices is 20%. Wow. Now, the prior slides, when I said 9%, remember that's an average nationwide. But if we start to really get granular on the pool of data, it's much, much higher, much, much higher. Months of inventory of homes for sale the last 12 months. Again, this is national. And national average is 2.0 as of the end of March. It was even lower, December to February. So we have seen, and I will concur, I have seen a small betterment, as we have seen people, buyers pausing out of the market because of affordability. Yes, there are homes that are going up. Instead of, I guess I'll put it this way, instead of 10 multiple offers, there's 4 or 5, but there's still multiple offers. Okay. So it's still very hectic. We did actually last week, I had 2 buyers that got the first time they ever made an offer after pre-approval, they got both of them. Now, they also had great realtors that knew how, they listened to their realtor, and whatever the realtor said. Realtors play such a vital role in all of this. They're like, we know, like, listen, if you want to get this house, this is what you have to do. And the buyers said, yep, I will do that. So it was just a perfect storm on all sides. But, those things are happening, but we are on almost every single contract. There are multiple offers on 90% of what I see still, which is a lot. Buyer traffic, I thought I would throw this in there. So buyer traffic, we're considered strong. We're the second box. If you look down at the legend, it's very, very strong. New Mexico, Montana, North Dakota. Gosh, what is it about North Dakota? Well, it's beautiful, I'm sure, but man, it's super cold. Nebraska. So there are some states where buyer demand is more strong. And if you can see again, that blue, that strong color, most of the country. The only place where demand is weak, that very lowest week, that blue is, it looks like Maryland. So the DC area. So most of the country, again, is in the strong group. Strong, like that is wow, as far as buyer demand. So this concludes, I would love, these are just some data that I wanted to hopefully educate everybody on what economists are saying anyway, based on past trends and where they think we're going in the future. Put some spin on my own personal data on there. So I will, leave it open just for a few minutes. And you can always also contact me on the side, but if anyone wants to chat a question, happy to field those. While I'm waiting to see if there's any chat, I will say we do need your help. I am referral only. When you get this, when you see it, when you're looking at it, please pass it on. I want to get this education to people. I'm super passionate about it so that people can make the best decision for them, whatever that might be. Okay. Please pass this on. You'll get the video link to YouTube. We'll have that to y'all on Monday. in your emails and refer us to someone that's buying in Texas. I would love to help someone who's buying a home who needs to take that step to pre-approve. You can also, number 3, engage with us on social media. All of my handles are Loan with Jen. I try to post articles, my videos that I do. I release 2 YouTube videos a week, so I post those on social media as well. So always trying to bring y'all content that is educational. I'm super passionate about education, hence why I did this webinar today. And then subscribe to my YouTube channel. We went over that in the beginning, the Loan with Jen. It's just your mortgage library for real facts, no BS. So some people are popping out. Great information. Thank you. I appreciate the kudos. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, really appreciate everyone being here today. I will pop off. I'm going to end this in just a second and look forward to talking to all y'all in the future. Any questions, just give me a call.